We're Hasani and Danielle Pettiford, and we're a real couple with real problems who almost called it quits.
I was very frustrated. I became very disconnected, very jaded and cold.
We have 4 children, going on 20 years of marriage, and we practice what we preach.
Our mission, to change the way couples relate to one another and teach them the skills needed to improve the quality of their relationships. This is the Couples Academy Show.
Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Couples Academy Show. My name is Hasani.
And I am Janella.
Janella, are you there?
I am.
And we're here to have a conversation with you two today about high-risk affairs. Now, we're calling this high-risk affairs because oftentimes there are high risks, that lead to an affair. And if you're not aware of the high risks, then you may not be knowledgeable of the fact that you're in a situation that is beyond your ability to control, and boom, here we are in the midst of an affair. A lot of times people struggle with the why. Why did this happen? And why would you allow this to take place? And understanding these high risks will contribute to understanding the why. And once you understand the why, then you can build really some protection around yourself and around your relationship, because some of these high risks are a result of things that have happened in the past. Some of them are behaviors that we're engaging in that we may not be aware of. Sometimes they're circumstantial things. And the more knowledge and insight you have into why things actually occur, I think it does a few things. Number one, people have a tendency of demonizing their spouse for bad decisions, but there are a lot of contributing factors that many of us aren't aware of that speak into why we do what we do. And we're here to unpack that today. And so you're watching the Couples Academy Show. Listen, before we get started, we always want to share with you others who have been impacted by the journey that we've taken them through. And so we're going to hear from Daryl this morning, who was an attendee of the Last Chance weekend. Hear what he had to say, because we have one coming up August the 12th through the 14th. Slots are filling up. There's still room for you. So check this out and be inspired for what's possible for your relationship.
Hi, my name is Daryl. I'm from South Carolina. I'm here at the Last Chance weekend with my wife. And we came here, her not knowing if she wants to move forward with the relationship or not. This was truly a last chance for me. And just coming here was a total eye-opener of things that I was lacking, things that I took for granted I wasn't doing in my life as a husband. And working with the team here really showed me everything, or put in perspective what I needed to do. And the breakthrough actually was day one. I mean, they unpacked everything and put everything in perspective and went day by day on things you need to do to get on track. And I mean, from the first night, opening up, seeing us writing letters to your wife of exactly what was going on, what went on, was an eye-opener, actually, for the both of us. And we returned from that event, brand new people, leaving the old behind. And I would advise anyone, if they're struggling, don't know which way to turn, you need to give Couples Academy a call. Get in touch with those guys there. They have an excellent team that will help you and your partner on the right path.
That's right. That's the last chance weekend. This is what we do every single month. That is what Couples Academy is known for, taking people through a comprehensive recovery process that focuses on their marital restoration. But we focus on your individual healing as well. There's a lot of recovery that takes place. So if you're ready to dive deep into something that's going to be transformational for your life, make sure you reach out to us and sign up for that. But we're talking about high risk affairs, and I have none other than Janella Rowland with us here this morning, who has been working with couples overcoming the trauma that they've experienced in their relationships. And we're going to dive deep into high risk. Now, Janella, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good morning to you.
Tell me about these high risks. Now, the reality is we hear it, but what does that mean in the context of an affair when we talk about this whole idea of something being high risk?
High risk is definitely the thing that can actually lead you to a place that you do not want to go. It's those unexpected things that show up in our life that can actually weigh on a relationship and cause turmoil, division, and
Mm.
actually end up into an affair or close call relationships if these high times are not handled properly. What we're not saying is because you're in high times, you're ultimately going to have a close call relationship or end up in an all out affair. We're just trying to sound the alarm to let you know that when certain things happen in our life, that this can happen if not handled properly.
I think that's important to I thank you for making that distinction. Being in a high risk time or environment or situation is not a guarantee that
Mhm.
you'll be in a close call friendship or an affair, but it's something to be aware of, right? You have to have a level of alertness. And just for clarity, close call, what does that mean? It means that maybe this relationship you have with another person is just a little bit too close. Right,
Right.
too close for comfort, and it's
Yes.
causing an uneasiness, uncomfort, discomfort in your spouse, and it's worthy of a conversation. Because wait a minute, if it's too close, if this continues, it may wind up in what we would call a full blown affair.
Yes. And you definitely don't want to play with fire because when you play with fire, you may get burned.
This is true. This is true. All right, so let's unpack this a little bit. There's three particular high risk factors that we want to talk about today. First is what we would call times of loss.
Yes, times of loss. Of course, when there's loss, it's devastating. Whether you're expecting someone to pass, if they're like end of life, or if it's unexpected, it is all devastating. And it actually can cause havoc on a relationship. So this is a high risk time because sometimes you're not available for one another. You're trying to go through the process of grief and sometimes being emotionally connected to your spouse, you're just not available to do that. So whether it's a loss of a parent, a loss of a friend, a loss of a child, loss of a coworker, anything, it can actually impact the marriage greatly. And what will happen is if you're not connecting with your spouse, you may come into contact with someone who wants to fill that emotional void for you. Because we have access to the internet and many ways of social connecting, you will have people reaching out. Oh, I heard your mother passed away. And then if you're not connected with your spouse, and this is a person that perhaps you had a relationship with in the past, and then they start sharing all those lovely memories. Oh, I remember when we went to the prom, your mom was so nice. And now you're just going down memory lane. And because you're not fully in your normal state, you may not realize that this might be a danger zone, just getting comfort from people from your past or just people that are readily available to give you that emotional support that you're not receiving from your spouse. So this put us in a high risk time.
And I think that's very true. And so then, digging even deeper, right? So, how in the world can a loss of a family member result in an affair? Well, there are things that are happen simultaneous to someone from your past reaching in and checking up on you.
Mhm.
Either A, there was a disconnect between you and your spouse
Mhm.
prior to this loss, or the loss led to the deterioration of the relationship you have with your partner. I think about this all the time about, parents who lose a child, and the grieving process that each goes through is completely different Some really cannot. I mean, they struggle. And so while one spouse is there for their partner or doing the best that they can, there's only so much they can do. There's a lot of times, Janella, when people don't go through any type of grieving process, they don't go through counseling, they don't go through a program, and they're figuring out what to do on their own, and things are getting worse. And what happens is, I don't want to talk. I don't want to be bothered. I just want to be alone by myself. And so they're isolating themselves from their partner. Then their partner kind of feels like they're locked out and can't connect. And so those things internally in their relationship begin to happen over time, and it creates a hardening of the heart, a disconnect, a vulnerability, a weakness, and then before you know it, boom. But
Right.
but Janella, in addition to that, like, what about the loss of a job? I mean,
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. This has been like the job. It has been your source of income. This is what you wake up to do every day. You have a sense of feeling important. You know that you're needed on this job, and then that thing is taken away from you, and it can turn up into anger. Now you're upset and you're taking it out on your spouse. Now you can't provide. The worries are just stacking up, and the confrontations are getting heated up in a relationship. So loss can actually just blow up everything in a home, which was once peaceful. Now we're having to deal with these issues, and sometimes we're just not capable to meet each other's need in that space. You would think a spouse would be
Mm,
supportive, or this may be the time where we can lean on one another. But if there were already pre-existing issues or
mm.
concerns, now you have this unexpected loss. Oh my goodness, it's all hell is about to break loose in this house if it's not dealt with properly.
Speaking of house, Janella, I remember it was around 2008. We were living in New Jersey at that time. We were kind of in real estate. We had a number of different properties. And then that's when everything turned upside down. There was a crisis. The real estate market collapsed. And I remember our home went into foreclosure. And we lost, in essence, our home. And you talk about the emotional, mental blow that it
Mhm.
that it that it had on me, right? Where I fell into a depression and I just got quiet and I just didn't know what to do. And it changed my whole mood, my disposition, my attitude, just the way that I showed up in the household. Because, as a husband, one of our roles is to be a provider. And how come I couldn't take care of our home and provide for our family? And so that created its own hardship, which
Mhm.
thus led to a disconnect. Because think about it, you can't pay for your home, that's going into foreclosure. Financial troubles happening. Now it's about the lights, and it's about the water, and it's about the electricity, and it's about the food in the fridge, and all these other things start to come into play. This the struggles people go through, and rather than coming together, it pulls them further and further apart. And so here's an indication of things may have been okay between you and your spouse, but something outside of you that you had nothing to do with impacted you. And because you didn't have the proper foundation or the tools or the skills to know how to navigate through it, it tore you apart. And in many cases, it can lead to a vulnerability to make poor choices, to wind up with, connecting with somebody who understands, because my spouse doesn't understand me right now. And so that's the slippery slope that leads to an affair.
Exactly. And then, during that time, like you say, if one person shut down, that means you're not connecting. So, what's not happening when you're not connecting.
Exactly.
So, now here comes the word sex. Sex is very comforting. So, if you're not feeling comfort and this other person on the outside is giving that listening ear, one thing leads to another. And then now you're at the place where you're saying, it started so innocently. So this is why we're sounding the alarm about these high risk times.
Guys, we're talking about high risk times in a marriage that lead to an affair. You're watching Janella and myself, the Couples Academy Show. We'll be right back. Stay tuned and we'll get you the other points that we're going to dive into. Stay right there. We're back. You're watching the Couples Academy show. We're talking about high risk affairs. In the first portion, we were talking about one of the high risk affairs that we face is the loss, times of loss, whether you're losing a home, losing a job, there's a financial loss, there's a loss of a family member, and what impact that has on the relationship. And listen, guys, if you're experiencing that right now, you're trying to figure out how to navigate through this, reach out to somebody who can help and guide you, because you don't have to remain in that stuck place. But we want to go to the next one because there's a few more we need to hit. And I think this is a powerful one right here, Janella. It's life transitions. You know, life transitions happen throughout the course of a marriage all the time. So let's talk about what some of these life transitions are and what impact they can have on your relationship.
Oh, my life transitions. When I hear that, I think back to my childhood when I would hear my pastor say, time is filled with swift transition. So in life, you know, they're going to come. It's going to happen. It may be a relocation. It may be the children going off to school. It may be that you have a sick parent now. Now you're the primary caregiver. You have all of these different instances and things that are happening in your life that basically will shake up your individual life and of course your marriage. So the one, I think, like most of us in our middle age, we have aging parents. So now you may be faced with, you have to care for this parent. So they may have to move into your home. They may live in another state now and you have to travel and go out. So you're worrying about their finances, their health. And on top of that, you have your own life situation. So it may cause issues within your family if you're not getting the support that you need. Maybe there was some in-law issues before. So now you have to take in this person that maybe the relationship wasn't that great with your spouse. So the stress and strain of that, then you start thinking about...
Well, pause. See, we need to park right there because that's where so many couples find themselves. I mean, it's very true. Either, you know, the parent is moving in with them, or to your point, they're moving in with the parent because maybe their house is bigger. But it has a tremendous impact on the marriage because, you know what, their presence is there. Right, just it's not like they're necessarily in the bedroom with you or in the living room with you when you're watching television trying to relax with your spouse, but their presence is there. And so what happens is it shifts the natural freedom that a couple may have just to enjoy their home the way that they would normally do. And then you're dealing with health conditions, and I got to take my mother or my father to the doctor, and they have a schedule and they have a regimen, and you know, they require a whole lot of attention, a whole lot of work. They're lonely, they're isolated, they don't have their own friends. So now you become their all in all, right? So it impacts the intimacy, it impacts the amount of time that you would spend with your partner, and that creates a disconnect.
Exactly.
And so, right?
The time is a big thing because maybe you had Friday night date nights every Friday. Now, if you have a parent that maybe have dementia, you maybe can't leave them in the home alone. So that time that you all share together, that is broken up. So if that continues, we don't know how long this transition is going to be if you don't make the necessary adjustments or get support or help in that area. It could really begin to take havoc on your relationship. And before you realize, because you're so involved in the day-to-day activities, you're trying to get them to doctor's appointments and, you know, work around your full work schedule. If you have children in the home, you have to care for your children. So that can impact the relationship greatly.
Absolutely. JD says something. He says, life transition, that is exactly what hit my marriage. We lost our marriage during our transition to a new city. Wow. And that's another thing, like relocating to another city, you know, whatever the reason may be. Hey, let's start fresh. We'll have a new home, a new environment. We'll develop new friends, find a new church. And oftentimes in that process, you wind up connecting, right, with people who are new and intriguing, and that's when it begins to happen. So you really have to be mindful to make sure that your relationship is intact and that there's a connection and there's a culture in your home and there are rules of engagement. And I think we talk about this all the time during the Last Chance Weekend, how so many couples come into relationships with expectations of how they should function. and they don't really have any rules or a code of conduct or a value system as it relates to how to interact with members of the opposite sex. And so it's so easy for close call friendships to happen because, oh, well, we just worked together. He's really nice. He took me under his wing and showed me the ropes. And, we developed a platonic friendship, and it's no big deal. And why are you worried? And it's okay. And then boom, before you know it, full blown affair. Oh, my neighbor. I mean, they're just nice. They're just showing. And these are the things that we have to be mindful of. And so nice isn't always a good thing if there's an agenda attached to it. But Janella, even people who retire, that's a life transition. I go from working a 9-to-5 job, and now I have all this time to myself to do whatever I want to do. It's so
Right.
easy to find yourself in situations.
And then, like, even with the person who was retiring, maybe they were the end all, the be all at the job. They're the boss. Everyone is calling their name. They feel important. They're leading meetings. They're making decisions, and just the boss. And now you're retired, and no one's calling your name. And you've been so busy at work, you don't even know this house and how this thing functions. So it's like a huge culture shock.
And when you're used to being the man or the woman, because everybody is in need of you, and they're praising you, and they're talking about how wonderful you are, and then you come home and your spouse is not doing that. Like, they're not praising you and celebrating you every single day as if you're so important. And so that longing and that craving for that is still there because you've been used to that for so long. And if you can't get it from your spouse, you begin to seek out where you can get it from. And then that leads to a temptation and a vulnerability that you become susceptible to, and boom, you find yourself in a situation. So there's so many complexities. I think about the human body, right? There's so many different ways that a person can actually die, right? I'm sure there are thousands of things that contribute to a person's death. Likewise, there's an incalculable number of things that can contribute to a person winding up in an affair, though they weren't aware of what led to it. And so this is where so many people get stuck, truly understanding the why. And people may know on a surface level, but they don't know on a deep comprehensive level. But, considering these high risk, incidences, the loss of life, or any type of loss, life transitions, this gives you some insight in terms of what may have led to the affair in the first place.
Exactly.
There's one more we want to hit. I think this is important, and that is pregnancy. Now, we deal with this a lot. Janella, there's so many calls that come into us where spouses feel not only betrayed, but they feel like it's adding insult to injury because you did it while I was pregnant. Unpack that for us.
Well, I love statistics, and one statistic that I read that almost like blew me off the seat, but I seen it in person. So I've seen it, I witnessed it. But when you could put some facts with it, it just opens it all up. They said 1 in 10 men, 1 out of 10 actually had an affair while their wife was pregnant. And this was in 2020. So we know that that's a high incident that this is happening in marriages. So it's not something that is far-fetched or just seen in a Tyler Perry movie or something. This is real life that people experience this. So my history is I was a mother baby nurse. So I was able to serve many parents when they deliver their child and witness that beautiful event, which it should be. And most times it really is. And before we go any further, I just want to say kudos to all the men that actually show up and do the right thing and be supportive and just love on their wives and just enjoy the whole process. But there's a group of men we need to talk about or sound the alarm before you become one of those men. During pregnancy, a woman's body is going through so much. She is literally birthing, carrying, growing a life inside of her. That in itself is a miracle. But for some reason, people get selfish. Men get selfish. It's like, well, her body's changing. I don't like this. Her stomach is big. It's like somebody's stomach had to get big for you to be here. But for some reason, they miss that. It's the selfishness that shows up. The woman can be very hormonal. We understand that because she's trying to adjust to this human life on the inside of her. She may not be able to sleep. So now she's tired and she doesn't have the ability to meet her husband's needs. So if he's feeling some kind of way and feeling like, oh my goodness, what's happening here? You know, her body's changing. She's mean. She's moody. So now he's feeling some kind of way. So he thinks that he can go on the outside and get that need met. So this is why this is such a high risk time, because already there's so much change that's going on in a woman's body.
This is such an important topic right here, because I think that this is one of the, you know, transitions in a relationship that people don't talk about, they don't prepare for. You're never going to hear about it in premarital class. Like, who talks about, you know, how do you deal with sexual intimacy during a pregnancy? Because to your point, every woman is different. I've heard of, you know, some women who have a heightened sexual desire during pregnancy and they want it all the time. Others who physically cannot do it because of the level of discomfort and pain that they're in. And so there's, in essence, for lack of a better term, a sexual drought. And then to your point, Janella, there's some men who, you know, when I see my wife pregnant like that, all of my attraction and desire has gone because they're taking on a motherly role, or I don't want to hurt the baby. Like this, all of this stuff, right? And I think it really requires a deep, comprehensive, I don't know, teaching to explain, you know, the nuances of pregnancy and the challenges that go along with it and how to come up with a plan to work through it. Because you're right. I mean, 9 to 10 months of no sexual intimacy, even though she's pregnant, it's a hardship on any relationship. So what do you do in those situations?
And you're absolutely right. I just want to mention a part about the premarital counseling. None of this is discussed. Most of it is pretty whack, trashy. It's just do not get the important things. And so, like, when you're thinking about, you know, most married people, they talk about, do we want to have children? And it's like, yes or no. And then the conversation kind of stopped there. But they never even think about the impact that the pregnancy will have on the relationship. And like you say, the 9 to 10 months, and then there's that postpartum period. So it was amazing to see how disconnected a lot of the fathers were when their wives were expecting and delivering. I can remember times in my nursing career, I would have dads that would say such insensitive things, like the first thing they wanted to know, when she's going to heal, like when is she going to be ready to take care of me? I mean, never mind your new baby boy or girl, your legacy, your
Janella, it's been 10 long, excruciating months, and I got to wait 6 more weeks?
You have to wait 6 more weeks. And I mean, it's just like, she's still in pain. She had the baby yesterday. She should be fine. It's like the inconsideration was just through the roof. I'm like, guys, come on. We need you to have a little more patience, a little more understanding. Your wife has really been through a transformation. So it's just amazing to see that people don't realize all the things that go on to it. And just their body changes in their mind, in their spirit. So much is happening. And we just need the men to be a little more understanding during that process.
We're just getting started, guys. We're talking about high risk affairs. We're going to continue tomorrow with a part 2 to this conversation because it goes a little bit deeper. So I hope that you enjoyed what you heard here today. Janella, phenomenal job. Listen, guys, I played a video about the Unearthed retreat that's going to be coming up in just a few months. I want you to take a look at that because it is filling up quickly. Yes. And so if you've been a part of the program, you need to be there. If you've been interested in considering the Unearthed program and you haven't joined yet, you need to be there. If you're hearing about this for the first time, if you're a woman with a pulse, you need to be at this Unearthed retreat. It's going to be incredible. So listen, we're going to play this on our way out and we'll see you tomorrow for another great episode. Love you guys. Take care.